So when you're feeling insecure about something, what do? How do you cope? When your insecurities, the things you hide, the things that trip you up and make you focus on the wrong things, kind of bubble up, what do? When you get tripped up by your insecurities, like we all do, how do you reset? Find some joy, because joy defeats fear. One day I am going to have my own bubble stole, a stole with a pocket to keep the bubbles in, and I'm going to need to have one in white and one in red, so that on high feast days and at diocesan celebrations, I can sit behind the preacher and blow bubbles, because bubbles are fun. And they bring joy to the kids, joy to dogs, joy to everyone who's not allergic to the soap. They remind us not to take ourselves too seriously. They remind us that having fun is holy. So one day I'm going to have my own bubble stole, so that when I get tripped up by my insecurities and fear drives my actions, I can remember how loved I am, how beloved we all are, and I can reset and focus on what matters. It's a little like my own clerical version of when I'm an old lady, I'm going to wear purple. But I'm not going to wait that long, because sometimes I think I need my bubbles now, and because the priest, who was a real priest, who did it first, and was famous for sitting behind preachers and primates and blowing bubbles at them, she didn't get to live to be old. She knew that fun was holy. And sometimes we need fun to let go of the insecurities that cause us to stop seeing the big picture, to keep us from our own discipleship, to keep us from our servanthood. Sometimes we need that fun to help us remember what's important. So how do you have fun to overcome, to let go of your insecurities and reset and remind you of love? And is it holy? Well, it is. It is. Our gospel this morning has James and John, the sons of Zebedee, getting caught up in all the wrong things, in power and prestige. It really seems to me that what they're getting caught up in is their own insecurities. They want to be respected, perhaps because they don't feel respected. They want to be powerful, perhaps because they feel powerless. They want to be great, the greatest among the disciples, perhaps because they feel that they aren't. They want security that they will be something, and they try like children to shore it up, right? To trick Jesus into giving it to them before he even knows what he's doing. And they get caught up in that detail of what isn't important, tripped up by their own fear. Because what are insecurities but fear that we aren't enough? And they miss the point. To be a disciple means letting go of that fear of not being enough, because we are. And being a disciple means following Jesus even though we aren't perfect, and finding grace and life. And James and John and all the disciples learn, and they learn quickly, that being a disciple doesn't lead to a life of glitter and glory, but the cross. Being a disciple means living like we aren't afraid, even when we are. It's not hiding the fear. It's finding ways to be faithful through it. It's not their flaws and their insecurities that keep them from seeing the bigger picture. It's getting caught up in them, allowing the fear behind them to drive their actions. And that's how they lose the plot. That's how they lose the forest for the trees. They need a reset, a way of reminding them that they are who God needs, just as they are, flawed and wonderful. that they need to not take themselves too seriously, as though by being more important, God will love them more. And I don't know about you, but it's my own insecurities that trip me up all the time. When I think about when I mess up, what's always behind it seems to be fear. My fear of not being enough, my hurts, my worries. They cause me to mess up. Sometimes they cause me to mess up again and again and again until I kind of figure it out. We all have insecurities. We all want wrong things sometimes, or get caught up in the wrong things, miss the forest for the trees, let our fear of who we aren't drive who we are. So I want you to think for a moment about your insecurities, the things that you feel not enough in, the things you hide. And how is God present despite them and in them? How are you who God needs anyway? Because Jesus needed James and John. They were exactly who he needed, despite their fear. I think insecurities are like anxieties. They just are. They're information about our feelings, and they help us reflect on why we do or don't do certain things. But just like the disciples, when we can't figure our way through them, they keep us from seeing and living when they get too big, when they become what motivates us or keeps us moving forward. When we get caught up in the wrong things, because they are about fear, not love. And so sometimes we need a check, a way of remembering how loved we are, how our flaws and the things we hide are still beloved of God, that we are enough. And I think that's where joy comes in, because joy, not fear, because joy defeats fear. So how can you use joy to move through your insecurities as you live into your discipleship? This bubble-blowing priest who died way too young was like so many of us, quite broken and flawed and wonderful and caring. I'm pretty sure as I look back on it that she was a cat hoarder. I'm not kidding. It was great fun to visit because there were always kittens, right? And I'm sure she had deep sadnesses and disappointments and big hurts. But she was a very faithful person. Through that, and more than through that, her discipleship, the way she lived her life brought love to the world. And the one thing everyone talked about at her 3 funerals, like who has 3 funerals? She had 3 funerals, was how beloved she was. But they talked about how she treated individuals, treated everyone the same. No matter who you were, be you primate or very small child, she gave you her full attention and respect. She lived her life with joy and a good sense of humor and always had her bubbles in her stole. So how do you take out your bubbles, your metaphorical bubbles, because it's still COVID, your joy as a way to reset and restore perspective so that you can live faithfully, not change and become a better person or different person and then be faithful, but as you are now, being faithful and flawed and hurt and wonderful. How can joy defeat fear in your life? Amen.